Marvel did it better than Max Visaggio.
Mark Millar did it better.
Oh, Mark Millar did it better.
With that hot take.
Yeah, that's still better.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna use a medium I don't like. Okay. Transmetropolitan appeals to a certain group of people. Transmetropolitan does what Transmetropolitan does very well. Other people should not try to imitate Transmetropolitan who are not themselves involved with Transmetropolitan.
I love
Transmetropolitan. And even then, I would not advise them to try and replicate that lightning in the bottle with a live-action television series if somebody thought it was a good idea.
If you leave a comment, if you're the first person to leave a comment with how many times RuneKnight said Transmetropolitan, and you're not a part of this show, I'll reach out and see about sending you something.
I didn't realize that you have an issue with Transmetropolitan RuneKnight. Oh. I love Spider Jerusalem and his adventures.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of leaving Las Vegas, what the fuck is it?
He's now responsible for
transhumanism leaving Las Vegas.
He's now responsible for peppering in the word Transmetropolitan for the rest of the episode, by the way.
Well,
so you're not just going to get off by watching the intro.
Well, look, let's just admit it. Transmetropolitan is my version of Alan Moore and your version of Secret Wars, okay? Right. We all know what it is.
Well, so what you're saying is we need to find a way to have a Transmetropolitan Secret Wars crossover event.
Well, because the obvious answer is that Spider Jerusalem is a facet of the Marvel gods of, or entities of chaos and order, and in fact will just upset the entirety of the Marvel Universe to set it back to something resembling normal, which is, of course, also the new wrong, because you just need more drugs, because that's the answer when you're Hunter S. Thompson, is more drugs. It's always more drugs. There is no depth to that content.
We've talked about Hunter S. Thompson's daily routine before, right?
Not that I recall.
It was before you were on the show.
I mean, we can talk about it again. It's been a while since we've gone through it. Let's just pull up old Hunter S. Thompson's daily routine.
Hold up. Have you played the intro?
Not yet. No, we're still in the cold open.
Run the intro, Johnny.
You're fired.
Johnny?
Johnny. Oh God, not Johnny.
No, they killed Johnny.
The shambling corpse of Johnny.
Johnny, no! Oh, Jesus Christ.
There is a sixth dimension beyond that which is known to man. Unlimitless, as vast as eternity, as timeless as the infinite begins. It is the middle ground between the big two and the indie publishers, between sci-fi and mysticism, and it lies between the pages of the reader's imagination. At the summit of entertainment, the dimension of comics, where a humble service is held. We call this service the Gospel of Comics.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host, The Church of Failure, and with me, as always, are my trusty co-host, Ayrton McCartney, RuneKnight, and Larry. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good. I'm sorry the last 2 sessions of this wonderful program I have been unavailable.
He says, don't lie to us.
I find it extremely strange that we've expanded. We're almost like a news team now.
And here's RuneKnight with the weekly degeneracy.
Furries exist.
Furries exist. It gon' rain.
But I'm actually was surprisingly looking forward to the comic choice you made this week.
Were you?
Oh, Master of Ceremonies Church. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well,
because one thing that I don't think I've had the opportunity to discuss with you. I think George R.R. Martin is a talentless hack, and everything he's ever created is made worse by his presence. Okay. And this is a comic book that's based off of a role-playing game ran by George R.R. Martin for his other writer friends.
This is a comic book based on a book that's based on a role-playing game that's ran by George R.R. Martin.
So this is the perfect comic book for us to discuss. Well, let me get in here with my opinions so I can then get out of here with my opinions because I have the least to say about this material. I read it. but obviously this is gonna be
Hey, that was my
Larry,
opinion too.
this is gonna be Larry and Church going at it. So I wanna get my neutral opinion out the way. You've already touched on, oddly enough, that we have to really address this in 3 stages. The first stage is, do you like Martin? Well, I think Martin, the individual, is okay. He's been in the industry writing screenplays and books and novels for decades. I'm not going to take away his earned success. The man works.
He's been a very successful published author,
right.
And he's had a journeyman-like novel writing production until recently.
Right. I'm not going to take that away from him. Do I like Wild Cards as a setting? I think I would enjoy. I think I would enjoy sitting down.
Novel bro will take that away from him.
Well, he's welcome to. I think I would enjoy sitting down and reading the novels. I think I would enjoy the book, right? Because I often enjoy Martin's written work.
Right.
I will often enjoy a Martin teleplay, like a television episode, if I don't know he's making it. If it's Game of Thrones or something, that's different, because now there's a lot of extra stuff on top. Did I enjoy this as a comic, which is the actual important part for this show? Not really bland.
Mm-hmm.
I've read this story before in the sense that I've read Watchmen, and I've read a book called Soon I Will Be Invincible, and I've read lots of postmodern, new comic superhero work where heroes exist in a world that's real, but they're also fallible humans, and a bunch of bullshit goes on. Things happened in this comic.
It's all a bunch of sludge, that entire genre of story.
I do not necessarily believe that there was a plot to this story, but a story happened. Do I think it was bad? Not my taste. I'm sure other people enjoy it. That's great. It's not badly done. The art is good. The characterizations are serviceable. It serves its purpose as a product. It's not some of the truly terrible things we have dug into and made fun of in other things. So that's the limit of my opinion. Is like, I was asked to read it, I read it, I did not feel like my time was wasted.
Now, Joe.
Yeah.
Brace yourself.
Okay.
Because I actually have the same exact opinion on this.
Okay.
I also didn't know that this was based off of a George R.R. Martin thing when I started reading it. But it took me a good hour and a half to get through the first issue because it was so slow rolling. The rest kind of picked up a little bit, but yeah, I was kind of like, meh. Like the concept. I think the concept was interesting. I didn't care for that.
There are in fact several different facets of the story, which I assume Church and Larry are going to really dig into, that I actually do find very interesting. Like, in and of themselves, would have been interesting stories to tell.
Like conceptually, they're it's interesting, just not. I didn't like the execution.
I don't necessarily like how they are all mixed together in the pot, but it's like none of the pieces are bad. It's not like Black Superman or Black Batman, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
All right, it's Black Batman we're talking about, not Black Superman.
Woo!
Shit.
So let me start off by peeling this onion with my personal animus against George R.R. Martin as a creator.
Okay.
So Game of Thrones was my nexus point first exposure to Martin's work. I've later read some of his other work. He is technically proficient. He is competent. I'm not taking anything away from his skill at his craft. I am saying what he writes is terrible. So his entire thesis for Game of Thrones is something that has been in a medieval authentic style of fantasy genre. It's a back and forth that happens. That there are people who are saying, oh, well, the way we talk about what happened in the past was overly romanticized. And then there's people who say, well, it's been overly grimdark. Martin is the overly romanticized guy. He's the guy who takes all of the worst stories that have the least amount of historical validity about the medieval world, and he reconstitutes the medieval world in his fiction based around the most terrible version of the stories that are not even remotely true. The great work of people like J.R.R. Tolkien are for people who, in their time, were writing in response to those people of like saying, bro, no, that's unrealistic. This stuff over here is more realistic. The truth is somewhere in the middle. But George always wants to write gray, depressing, unhappy dreck, where they're unhappy people living unhappy lives. Heroism is a lie, and there's no real reason to get up out of bed and do anything. That's his ethos in most of his work. And that's his ethos in these stories that he didn't himself write. These are like, if I remember correctly, the short stories that these were based off of were a collaboration between him and other authors, originally in published short stories that he edited into the books that were then adapted into the comic books. If I remember correctly,
that's correct.
The genealogy of the publication.
The idea behind the comic book is that it is an individual story that take regarding a few bombings. Let's just talk about the plot, overarching plot, real quick.
Well, hold up. Before we get to that, I do want to touch briefly on the art, very briefly.
Okay.
So this was a small comic book company. They're not a major publisher.
No. This is Marvel. Epic
This
Comics.
Marvel?
Epic Comics is owned by Marvel.
Okay. Well, they didn't have a good budget because really you need something like, I know you can't hire Alex Ross because it's incredibly expensive, but to sell something like this, you need that kind of style of writing. You really need that sort of semi-realistic, old-timey style.
Well, you need at least a competent writer attempting to it, right?
Well, no. I'm talking about the art. I think that you need a certain kind of art to go with this story, and this wasn't the right art. None of the art they used was correct for this story.
I'll give you that. I didn't really appreciate the jarring amount, like the jarring cuts in between individual pages, because there's no clear break in the stories themselves. They're okay. So the premise of the books themselves, like the way that they're constructed, is that you've got it right. It's several collections of bits and pieces of short stories, and small novellas that get broken up and formed into an overarching book with some kind of loosely connected thread.
Yeah, the comic has basically a framing device story about a series of bombings.
Correct. But it's also used to introduce you to a lot of the key players in the wildcard books. And those stories are mostly just kind of callbacks to the first book. So while the overarching story of these comics takes place between the 5th and 6th wildcard book, Down and Dirty and Ace in the Hole, you've got basically a callback to several plot threads from the first book, just in a very brief introductory fashion to kind of familiarize you with the characters. RuneKnight mentioned that he had read Watchmen and several other books that he felt that this was derivative of almost. To me, it almost felt like a really misguided attempt at an Astro City type.
I mean, I could see that. This is sort of like a Watchmen to an Astro City. I could see that a lot.
Like, that's the feel that I got from it, and it really could work with the way that Wildcard is set up with the correct talent. I don't think the talent was really there on these books. While the books are competent, they're fine.
Well, I mean, if you look at the credits in the back, there are a lot of people with good credits, but I don't know if they were actually involved in writing the original short stories or what the deal was.
They were probably responsible for adapting them. So
okay,
that would be what I assume. There we go.
So it recounts the stories from the first book. The alien who caused the superpowers to develop on the world, who's basically a Doctor Who ripoff.
Dr. Tachyon, yes.
Yeah, he's basically Doctor Who. It talks about their version of the Justice Society / invaders / Avengers. Well, no, the Four Aces.
Oh yeah, the Four Aces, and then Scare, which was another group of essentially metas that were of wild cards that were gathered for CIA type shit.
Yeah. And the Four Aces was the only story I ever found particularly interesting about the setting, except for when it got into the whole point of the story, which was the Red Scare plotline, which was when I felt it was the least interesting.
Okay. Now, see, my thing is, the stories for me, in an overarching sense with the books, is characters like Croyd and the Turtle, and the individual characters that drive it for me. The overarching story is usually the least interesting part of the books themselves, but watching the way that the characters like walk around each other and interact inadvertently with one another is always the draw for me.
Yeah. Like, the reason the Four Aces I like that is it resonates with me because, like, the beginning part of that story, that really feels like a pulp superhero team that
Right.
came into being. It felt like it belonged in a semi-realistic 1940s where
And
superpowers exist.
right, but it also had like the peppering in of like real life scenarios that you would deal with people like that, like the adultery and
Yeah.
the
But that was because it was all an allegory about, Hollywood and the Red Scare, but not what actually happened. It's an allegory about the mythology of Hollywood and the Red Scare.
right.
It's like we tell a lot of mythologies about Hollywood that aren't true, but everybody believes are true. Like everybody who says, well, Walt Disney was a virulent anti-Semite when he actually hired more Jewish employees than the actual Jewish studio bosses. And he was the largest single contributor to Jewish charities several years, both before, during, and after World War II.
Right.
But according to David Stay, Scarlett Johansson is actually a dude. So
Oof.
Correct. That is correct.
So that's why I like those. And the one who is the strongest guy, whose character's name is completely escaping my head.
Golden Boy.
Golden Boy. Golden Boy, I relate to his character because he feels like the most realistic character in the setting for me when I'm reading it.
Okay.
I believe in him as something that's real, that exists.
And this
Everything
is all
else
from
seems...
the books themselves. This is not from the comic. You actually didn't get a lot of Golden Boy's character arc in the
No, you didn't. But the problem is all the other characters are really, in my personal opinion, try-hard characters that don't feel like they belong in a realistic, envisioned universe.
The thing. Let me put on my literati hat for just a second.
Okay.
The actual main character, the magician, right?
Poppin' Jay.
I believe he was a creation just for the comic book. I
No,
think.
Poppin' Jay is a real thing in the books.
But the thing is, he
He
is an
is,
excellent character.
He was a second wave.
But he's not. But
Oh,
he's
okay.
an excellent. He's an excellent character in other media I've seen him in, because obviously there's elements of John Constantine,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And for anyone who's a horror nerd like me, he's got elements of Clive Barker's D'Amour, his
Oh yeah.
noir occult detective. So
Right.
Also, what's his face from Magica? Simon. Similar kind of character.
So the basic thing as we're laying into these characters or discussing what we do or do not like about these characters is it's not just that, oh, well, this character's a Doctor Who ripoff, because we've seen that as well in, like, The Authority with their version of the Doctor, who I believe is literally called The Doctor.
Well, Tachyon,
it's
real quick for
there are character icons that are used across media that are really good, and some of them appear here, but they need more space. They need to be there in their own characters and their own stories.
Right, but the thing is, for Dr.
Hold
Tachyon...
on.
Go ahead.
Real quick about Dr. Tachyon. There are elements of Dr. Tachyon that are repeat elements that George R. R. Martin uses in all of his writing. So I think that this is more a leftover bit of himself that he might have mixed with a Doctor Who to make the character whole. But if you look at Tachyon, he's got violet purple eyes. He comes from the ruling class family of his people. So, I mean, he's essentially a Targaryen.
But also he has a multicolored shirt, so he's the sixth
He's
Doctor also.
Yeah, he's very flamboyant. But
he's also Ulrich of Melamed.
And
he's also
the vampire from Fever.
Yeah, he's a lot of characters.
But I call him Doctor Who because, from my understanding of the stories of the original role-playing game, he was made as a NPC who was basically a Doctor Who went evil and then went back to being good.
In the books, he's never gone evil.
Well, I mean, the whole plot with the bomb was kind of evil. You know,
Tachyon
that
wasn't
whole
responsible for the bomb.
I mean, he helped make it.
Oh no, he didn't. No, his people made it, and he was the one that tried to intercept it. Like he helped develop the virus, but he didn't help like make the bomb that was going to get unleashed.
Yeah, he didn't realize what his research was going to be done, but that's still kind of evil.
It's not, because I mean that happens in reality. That is a storyline that has been used.
Hold up. You're saying gain of function research is fine, RuneKnight?
I'm saying that scientists very rarely have actual control over what their governments or their funding do with their creations. And we can't say the scientist is evil for making science.
Like
studying virology is neutral. Applying virology can be evil.
The whole experiment was very biological weapons, and that was clearly George's intent as a biological nuclear weapon, especially with Einstein being involved in the initial setup character arc for Dr. Tachyon.
Well, you also have to take into account the literary purpose of the virus, which was made to allegedly he thought he was developing a virus that would basically empower his own family and his own people and increase their power within their
society. Isn't that also evil?
No, I mean that's just the way fiefdom works.
I mean, it's a little evil, but
you want to have an entirely different conversation.
Everything is gray, Larry.
Time.
I mean, it's George R. R. Martin. Everything is gray sludge in George R. R. Martin.
I have gone on before about how in storytelling, because RPGs are full of this, direct monarchy of any sort is the worst kind of monarchy, and the love affair we have with it is retarded. Just because of the constant use of monarchy as a system in societies that should have either done a more evolved one or just not used it.
But let's see. I mentioned Gold Boy. Jet Boy is kind of boring. The setting.
He's a martyr.
He's never. No, I know he's the martyr, but I'm saying everything they do to talk about him in the book in the books. Again, it didn't matter that much in the comic book, but everything they've set up about him in the books just really makes it like, why does everybody like this guy? I don't get it.
Again, I feel this is a good character who just does not get room in his own piece to really play out what he does.
Well, I mean, George makes him to die, much like he made Ned Stark to die.
I kind of look at Jet Boy as the example.
But Ned Stark was played by Sean Bean.
Yeah, Thane Bean.
Sorry.
But I kind of look at Jet Boy as a character created to show the romanticism of heroics and superheroes and things of that nature in a world where we literally see these superheroes and they're literally like people. Like they suffer from alcoholism, they suffer from impotence, they're pimps, they're not superheroes, they're not Tony Starks, they're not Bruce Waynes, they're not going to necessarily win at the end of the day.
I too do suffer from pimpism.
Look, it's a legacy power. The power of the pimp hand is strong across generations, and it is a great responsibility.
It is.
I got infected with the virus, and it turned me into a pimp with a giant forehead.
But that's fundamentally my problem with the story is I hate the way George R. R. Martin makes a world. It's just so tiresome.
And see, I love it. Like I love George R. R. Martin's like world building.
So Church, I have to ask you a question, and I apologize because we're going to get demonetized if we were ever even going to be monetized.
We were never going to be.
If you get bitten by a radioactive thing and it turns you into a pimp, does that mean your superhero name is Blackface?
Yes.
But
it is now.
The thing is, George R. R. Martin's world building doesn't impress me because it's
my
not made
superhero
to
name
serve
is a
anything
pimp
other than
named
to be
Slickback.
depressing.
That is an excellent name.
What?
No,
You have
we are actually
you have to
following
say
you
the-
there. We're not just fucking
Yeah.
around.
No,
You
no,
have
no.
to say the whole thing. It's like a Tribe Called Quest.
But again, George R. R. Martin is competent. This isn't like Tom King, whose writing isn't competent. This isn't like Tom King, who's trying to express his low libido and low T lifestyle through his work. This is a guy who's writing something that's competent, but it's dreary, depressing dreck that doesn't really uplift as art should uplift.
I don't think so.
No.
Like
It's
I enjoy it.
pornographic in its
Yeah.
depressingness.
Well, I think a real issue that needs to be addressed, not to infer that what you've said is not an issue, is the presumption that a author who has succeeded in one arena, or any creator who succeeds in one arena, succeeds in all arenas, right?
Right.
When Martin was doing work as a working man's creator, just a name on a board, that's fine. Even his Game of Thrones work before Game of Thrones hit that popular tone as A Song of Fire and Ice was good.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you liked it or not, being personal. Once it became George R. R. Martin, creator of Game of Thrones, and his name became gold on anything it was attached to, the assumption is anything his name is attached to is now going to be good.
Right.
Right?
Well, I think what you're saying is his weakness is his ego.
Not even his weakness, but the presumption of other media that it's like, okay, we got to get Martin on everything. Anything. He's the modern Tolkien. If we just apply his name to more products, those products sell.
And
whether
people will get excited for next product.
And I'm always very much against enjoy product, get excited for next products.
Right.
But
well, these stories, the ones that I'm up to,
I actually
there are 20 books in
Game
the
of
series.
Thrones, the show, versus the books.
You guys are talking to each other. What do you?
Sorry.
There are 20 books in the series, and so far I'm up to book 5. I just finished it. I'll be on book 6 next week. I feel probably by the time we hit the area where, Wild Cards is cross-sectioning with Song of Ice and Fire's Glory Day, that the books are going to fall off pretty hard. Like, that's just a prediction that I'm going to make.
But that's the gist of my feeling on this. Is like, this is an adaptation of a book I didn't like. It is a technically proficient adaptation, but unlike the Benioff and Weiss adaptation that became the very successful HBO TV show, this wasn't a good adaptation. It was just proficient. What Benioff and Weiss did well is they peeled off the excess and got to the raw essence of George R. R. Martin, the essence of what is compelling in his work. And they hired talents who could really communicate those characters, those settings, and those themes effectively. And this wasn't a good adaptation, it was just proficient.
I'll give you that. Like I said, these weren't my favorite books, but this is the first of 2 Wild Card series that I'm going to be looking at. We might look at the second one if you guys want to give that a go. They're definitely newer. They were in the 2000s.
No.
We're definitely doing it now, guys.
I mean, this comic would have been a lot better if the art was better.
If
That's
the
one
art
thing
was
I'd
at
say.
least consistent.
Can we just read Neonomicon again instead?
Well,
Yeah,
up to the 4th book. I actually found the switch when they did the flashback, because they hadn't done any sorts of flashbacks like that throughout the entire piece, incredibly jarring.
Yeah, that was a bit. Yeah, that was a bit.
when
much.
they
That threw me off for a
changed art
sec.
styles for like 6 pages.
Mm.
I very much did not like that.
And the lettering is also very inconsistent throughout the books.
Yes.
And
it doesn't help that my completely legitimate copy is a bad scan.
I had an experience where it's like I recently watched Jungle Cruise starring The Rock and Emily Blunt, and the music and the action
you saw the new
pieces
Pirates of the
took me
Caribbean
out
movie?
of it. No, that's not fair to either the Pirates of the Caribbean or that movie, because it's also trying to rip off The Mummy. It's trying to rip off Pirates of the Caribbean and The Mummy at the same time.
So you saw the new Jumanji trilogy?
The Pirates of the Mummy,
basically.
The Pirates of Egypt.
The problem is,
I'll pirate your mummy.
There are several problems with that work. Are you okay with me segueing this unplanned review into the show?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
by all means.
So they have like all those kind of very frenetic action set pieces like you would have in The Mummy or Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's very clear that the director is saying, hey, we need to have a shot like they would have had in the Mummy for this sequence. Or, hey, we need to have a shot like they would have had it for Pirates of the Caribbean in this sequence without, hey, let's have a really cool action sequence that sets the right tone that we're wanting to do.
Has Dwayne Johnson taken his shirt off in this scene? These are questions that they ask.
Well, Dwayne Johnson actually did take his shirt off a lot in this.
Two things.
Okay.
Two things real quick. One, I had a conversation recently with someone where I was trying to explain the idea of what Valve game does, where when they make like a Half-Life or the like, knock on wood, they have arenas and corridors. You travel through a bunch of corridors, even if they don't look like corridors, a bunch of narrow pathways, and then you reach what's basically an action set piece in the area in the form of a large shooting arena. Movies kind of do the same, right? And it has varying degrees of function, because in an action film, an action set piece can be very nice, but an action set piece can also be boring as shit if it's not built properly.
Also, the action scenes were a lot very Disneyfied, as in they weren't kind of gritty. There was no grit at all to them. It was all hyper polished.
My thing is, and this is not apologetics, this is just a statement of fact. If somebody's ripping off the Brendan Fraser Mummy, right, and at least trying to harken back to qualitative film we used to get, I'm going to complain far less. Because they could have gone the other way and said, hey, let's remake Kurtzman's Mummy. They could have said, let's do something way worse. Have action set pieces that nobody wants to see.
The music was a problem because the music was directly trying to be Pirates of the Caribbean for a thing set during World War I in Brazil. The music took me out in every single scene it was in. All the animals were CGI, and only one of the animals CGI was good.
I felt like everything.
Admittedly, that was
CGI.
the end.
Did they have a lot of monkeys? They're swinging from vines with monkeys?
Oh no, they had CGI dolphins.
I'm pretty sure The Rock was CGI.
I mean,
again.
actually, there was a sequence where they made The Rock CGI. And they turned him to Dwayne The Rock Johnson was playing a literal rock for part of this movie. So the problem, another...
Will a two-story drop kill me?
No, you'll just wish you were dead.
No.
Another problem with this movie is they had two villains in it. They had one villain who was the son of the Kaiser, who was involved in a supernatural plot in Brazil for some reason. It's like, hey, I want to get a magical cure-all so I could help the German army defeat everybody.
Well,
what?
Just one more thing on this massive segue. I don't actually... I can't blame a film for that. Because, in fact, I can blame Alan Moore for this. It has become a thing. It is very popular to have a film set in a historical milieu and use historical content completely regardless, completely out of context of its materials. Anyone, I'm sorry, I'm gonna make a hot take. Anyone who likes the book From Hell and loved the Johnny Depp movie of the same name, your taste is terrible and you should feel bad.
The other villain in the sequence was like Barbossa's crew, but less interesting from a CGI standpoint. They became part of the. They were bound and trapped in the jungle for so long. They absorbed parts of the jungle into their essence.
That was Davy
soul.
Jones's crew, not Barbossa's.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they were supposed to have been like Davy Jones's crew because Rock was originally part of their crew, and he wasn't fully cursed. He was only cursed with immortality.
So Orlando Rock,
basically. And the MacGuffin is this magical cure-all plant that cures all illnesses and also cures curses. And the Rock says, "Man, I really want to get that. Why? So I can die." Because the Rock's been alive at this point for 300 to 400 years, and he's like, "Nah, I'm done. I've not only had a good run, I've had 3 and 4 good runs. I'm done. I deserve my rest." And Emily Blunt's character wanted to.
Wait, so you're telling me that the Rock's been alive for 300 or 400 years, and Christopher Lambert didn't show up to to challenge him to a sword fight?
Well, you see, here's the thing: in that setting, chopping off the Rock's head would have done nothing because he would just put his head back on his body.
I think Christopher Lambert still would have showed up to sword fight him.
Yeah. And Emily Blunt's character wanted to use the magical cure-all to cure all diseases. But then she, for some reason, fell in love with the Rock's character, but they never sold the love story angle.
I mean, he's large, bronzed, and muscular.
Right, they didn't sell that. But
do they really have to? I mean, the Rock just walks on screen and you can see it.
Well, they sold the Rock in a love interest with what's-her-face, who played Emily Pond from Doctor Who in the whole Jumanji movies. They played that off. That worked. That got sold. They didn't really sell it here. And there was charisma between Emily Blunt and The Rock. They just didn't do a good job. But the whole fourth act stakes are set on the fact that The Rock falls in love with her and is willing to not die to spend one more lifetime with her. And she's willing to give up her desire to cure all diseases in the world to save The Rock.
Frankly, that's the thing that I find incredibly unrealistic about this, is the idea of a character motivation that is, I'm going to cure all diseases everywhere. You know, the Great Panacea or the Philosopher's Stone aside, the fact of the matter is that we need illness as a mechanism both to check population and to improve our species, because without the testing ground of illness, you cease to advance.
Yes, there are many.
Biology begins to fail.
There are many problems with that, but there are people who are hyper altruistic. So what they should have done was make the whole plot arc for her not about falling in love with The Rock, but realizing that it's sometimes enough just to save one person.
Yeah.
And the plot arc for The Rock shouldn't have been falling in love with her. It should have been she convinced him that it was okay to be vulnerable and open up to other people to help others again. And then when that happens, you can sell the love story in the next movie.
So, real quick, we were talking about this in the intro. We never quite got around to it. Hunter S. Thompson's daily routine, ladies and gentlemen. Are you familiar with this, Larry? Have you seen this before?
I have.
Okay. Rune, have you ever seen this before?
Not specifically.
Okay. A writer walked around with Hunter S. Thompson all day just to take down his daily routine. 3 p.m. Rise. He wakes up at 3 in the afternoon. 3:05. A glass of Chivas Regal, which is scotch, with the morning papers and Dunhills.
In my personal opinion, a very overrated brand of scotch.
Yeah. It depends.
Can you give an opinion? What is the quality of this scotch?
I can give an opinion. It's okay.
I've actually never tried Chivas Regal.
It's okay for the price point. It's just not great.
I was assuming because Ayrton is a tobacconist that he also is a purveyor of alcoholics within a sales perspective?
No.
Anyway,
Not in
3:45 p.m.
Not in sales.
3:45 p.m.
And the fact that I hate my liver, yes.
Cocaine. 3:50 p.m. Another glass of Chivas, another Dunhill. 4:05, first cup of coffee. 4:15, cocaine. 4:16, orange juice and a Dunhill. 4:30, cocaine.
I'm going to pause for a moment here. You see, cocaine takes time to get into your system, and he knows the cocaine hasn't had time to kick in when he has his second thing of cocaine. And the first thing of cocaine has had time to kick in by the time he has the third thing of cocaine.
Yes.
So he was the original YouTuber.
At 4:30, he takes another bump of cocaine. At 4:54, more cocaine. 5:05, cocaine. 5:11, coffee, Dunhills. 5:30, more ice in the Chivas. He's been drinking Chivas the whole time. 5:45, cocaine. 6 p.m.
He really likes cocaine.
6 p.m. Grass to take the edge off.
I really hate this.
He's been awake for 3 hours and needs to take the edge off. 7:05.
Cut down the cocaine a little bit.
7:05. Woody Creek Tavern for lunch. You ready for this, Rune? Heineken.
I'm going to assume more.
No. Well, it's in there. Heineken. 2 margaritas, 2 cheeseburgers, 2 orders of fries, a plate of tomatoes, coleslaw, a taco salad, a double order of onion rings, carrot cake, ice cream, bean fritter, Dunhills, another Heineken, cocaine, and for the ride home, a snow cone, which is a glass of shredded ice with 3 or 4 jiggers of Chivas poured over it.
and a jigger's about 1.5 ounces.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. So we're talking about 6 drinks in the snow cone.
Stephen King is a complicated author. Lots of people like to shit on him, say that all of his work is interchangeable, that it's very bland. Some people have decided it's racist, all kinds of stuff. But the one thing that I really appreciate about Stephen King is he doesn't lie about his past, right? He straight up says, I don't remember writing The Stand. I remember, he says that getting into the drugs was bad, right?
I mean, we all remember what the cocaine influenced him to write in It.
Yeah. He straight up says, it's like, look, I have an addictive personality, I got problems. I've always assumed that after his most recent car accident, he's probably on prescription pain meds, because I think that some of his authorial decisions have been a little crazy, but at least he's honest about it.
I will say the decision to put himself in the Dark Tower series was interesting. But
the point is that then you look at all the people who defend, love, and suck the necrotic dick of Hunter S. Thompson's corpse, and it is full of lies. The fact
you can also get a contact high from doing it.
Anyone who is that high can certainly write something in an amount of time, but that doesn't mean what they make is any kind of good. And just because it hit a note, just because it found a place at a given time of history and a given, I mean, the man failed to write an article for Rolling Stone. That's his claim to fame.
No, his claim to fame. He wrote a book about failing to write an article.
Yeah, he returned to them with a diatribe about his drug-induced wandering.
And that actually isn't his signature claim to fame. That's the most well-known claim to fame. His signature claim to fame was Fear and Loathing in Hell's Angels, where he spent 1.5 years as a member of the Hell's Angels Club and then wrote about it.
All right. You guys ready for after lunch?
Yes, after lunch.
9 p.m.
We're not fucking done yet?
No. We just finished lunch.
Just hit his lunch.
Jesus
9
Christ.
p.m. Cocaine.
Fast enough.
10 p.m. Drops acid. 11 p.m. 11 p.m. Chartreuse, cocaine, more marijuana. 11:30, cocaine. Midnight, Hunter is ready to write. 12:05 to 6 a.m. Chartreuse, cocaine, grass, Chivas, coffee, Heineken, clove cigarettes, grapefruit, Dunhills, orange juice, gin. 6 a.m.
We should probably point out. We should probably point out when they say cocaine, he's not doing like lines. Back then, they're just doing like quick little bumps.
Yeah.
So it's not as much cocaine as it sounds like.
No, but it's still a lot of cocaine, though.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of cocaine.
He probably goes through about an 8 ball a day on this routine.
Probably. Yeah.
Anyway, 6 a.m. in the hot tub, champagne, Dove bars, fettuccine Alfredo. 8 a.m. Halcyon. 8:20 sleep.
Also, I'd like to point out that all of that alcohol consumption is counterindicated with Halcyon.
See, I want to point out something. People who like Hunter S. Thompson, the people who really get into him, they try to say that he's an authentic person. You know, very much like anyone who liked Carol.
No, he was a drug addict.
No, he's
Here's the thing, though.
He's a hedonist.
Here's the thing, though. All these people who observe him doing this stuff, did he actually do it, or is it all like, a presentation in a show? Is it all a sales pitch?
That's not relevant. What I'm talking about is people who actually have not read him, right? Who do not put into context what he says, but they fucking love the concept of the character because they saw a Johnny Depp movie.
Peanut butter and crack sandwich.
And Johnny Depp did an excellent job portraying the character of Hunter S. Thompson.
He did.
It's also worth pointing out Hunter S. Thompson hated that movie.
Also worth pointing out that Johnny Depp was on a lot of cocaine.
Johnny Depp did at least one day on the Hunter S. Thompson routine to further get into the character.
Right, method acting. Probably while he was shooting the film.
That's probably when Amber Heard beat him in the head.
No, this was before.
Yeah.
Because you can't beat a man who's on that much cocaine.
No, it won't stay up.
Beat him off.
No, it won't stay up. I'm telling you. Nope, that's not happening. Not on that much cocaine.
But
there are songs dedicated to that.
True.
So the biggest problem I have for Transmetropolitan is the Smiler.
Hold on. Let's not get into Transmetropolitan yet. Let's finish up on Wild Card.
Where did this segue come from?
We have to get Rune to say Transmetropolitan a few more times so that if anybody ever does
Transmetropolitan.
Right. So
because the antagonist of the series is the part that I never really liked because I never believed in the universe he would exist.
I'll let you go on about the things you don't like about Wild Cards as the book and the comic. So I
love Transmetropolitan.
Love that. Let me get into Wild Cards a little bit on some of the things that I enjoy about it. All right, you didn't really get a good look at Croyd Crimson in the first book or in these comics. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Croyd Crimson. He is a very unique wild card in these books. He's called the Sleeper. So he falls asleep and then wakes up, and he is a completely different person than when he went to sleep. And he stays awake for weeks on end, sometimes months, but he sleeps for weeks on end and sometimes months to go through these transformations. But
in fact, the Hunter S. Thompson regimen may be involved in him staying awake.
It is actually. That is one of his key characteristics. Is he is a speed freak. Like he starts taking speed as soon as he starts getting tired to avoid going to sleep for longer amounts of time. But he gets like super fucking paranoid and starts hurting people. But he's like a nice guy on the surface, like until he starts speeding. So, but he's one of my favorite characters. And then you've got Great and Powerful Turtle, the most powerful telekinetic on the planet, right? Except he can't use his powers unless he's in his shell.
I have to say, I love the concept of the turtle, and I think the turtle would be a great character in a better setting.
I do love the turtle, and there's a story about the turtle like wanting to give it up for a while in the fifth book, and then he kind of gets his gusto back by floating 3 shells at one time. But no, I like the turtle, and it's the characters like that. Like I don't really like Tachyon as a character. Like he just doesn't appeal to me as a character. But the great and powerful turtle, Croyd Crimson, and Jube the walrus.
I will give you that. The turtle is ridiculous enough to be entertaining.
Right? Like this guy that can't use his TK powers unless he's in a fucking armored VW bug.
or like in Mystery Men, I can turn invisible, but only when people aren't looking at me.
Right? There are other
or
characters,
like what I say, I'm immortal so far.
There are other characters that you don't really get to see in this comic that are really interesting. One is a restaurateur, the guy that owns Aces High. His name's Hiram Worcester, and he walks around. He looks like he's got a mass of at least like 350 pounds, but he controls gravity, so he keeps himself at a solid 30 pounds all the time. Just shit like that they sprinkle into these books, and these guys eventually have like much bigger character arcs. The fifth book was all about Croyd turning or waking up with a wild card ability to give other people wild card, and people just started dying left and right again. Called him Typhoid Croyd. That was pretty good.
They actually allude to that in the book.
Yeah, right. In the comic. That's what I'm saying. Rather. Like the actual. This comic takes place after the fifth book and before the sixth, but they have to give you all of this like introductory material so you know these characters. So that's why all these books are double sized and seem like they talk about everything and nothing at the same time. Like the ending of this book, I gotta say, was kind of shit. Like I don't like the ending of this book. You get Stilt Man. Like what the fuck is you get fucking Stilt Man? That's the end of it.
And Stilt Man gets electrocuted.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that you got Larry here talking about the ideas of Martin, how Martin feels about heroism, and mostly it's not that I disagree. It's just mostly it's like, yeah, that's an opinion. I don't know if I'm with it, but I won't disagree with it. But I will say that when you have the opportunity to suggest this dissonance between heroism and villainy, right? And you get to the penultimate engagement, right? At least Watchmen did have a superhero fight. It was a pointless superhero fight because
Dr. Manhattan's a god.
But they had because it had already been done 13 minutes ago. No, yeah. I mean they actually understood that in the medium you have to have the super fight, right?
Right.
Here you have Stiltman. Stiltman doesn't live long enough even to threaten anyone. He's just hit by a bolt of lightning and it's all over. That's flat. And that doesn't pay off to the reader.
And Martin has said in interviews he doesn't like heroism. He doesn't believe in that. And he very much has been critical of how overly romantic Tolkien is. He's been public about that.
I mean...
don't get Joe started on Tolkien.
Clock can be right at least once a day.
Well, here's
I tend to believe that the strike zone's in the middle. I think both of those guys are the far edge.
Being 5 books into the Wildcard series, there are many other stories that these books could have adapted and gotten that superhero fight out of, but for some reason they chose not to. And they alluded to one of the best ones, which was the Swarm War. But there was even the fight where Typhoid Croyd was on the loose, and Modular Man and another ace had to try and take him down.
Also,
go ahead.
Who is the Joker ace? I remember the Joker ace was a big antagonist in one of the books. There was one that was like a really scary antagonist at one point.
Oh, you're talking about the astronomer.
Yeah.
He was just an ace. He wasn't a Joker ace.
Okay.
A Joker
I
ace
remember
has...
one of the books had a Joker ace, and he was like supposed to be super scary. And I never read that one.
I haven't gotten there yet. It's not in the first 6. The first 3 books, the big bad is the astronomer, and the second 6 is Greg Hartman, the senator who is also Puppet Man.
That's actually the thing that I didn't care for in the book. Like,
you might be talking about Gimli, the dwarf that could cause riots. Sorry, go ahead, Rune.
But I'm really not a fan of the nomenclature.
Okay.
The name wild card and the structure that they randomly decided we're going to use playing cards to describe our super problem just strikes me as
fake.
Clunky.
No, it strikes you as fake. It's not something that people would actually say in a real world setting.
Right.
I don't know. I actually didn't hate that. I thought it was kind of fun.
I mean, I enjoy it. It works.
That's the thing. I'm not going to like take it away and say if you like this, you're a piece of shit. It's just like
that sounds like what you're saying, Joe. You just hate fun.
No. What I'm saying is there are certain things that stand out as being fakey fake and take you out of the moment.
Yeah.
It's like when Spike Dudley, would do a Hurricanrana and take out Big Van Vader. That would be fake, and that would take you out of the wrestling experience.
Well, one thing about it is it is a little bit clunky the further on you get in the book, because they use things like there's a tour where aces and jokers and even like normal people go on a world tour for peace and jokerdom or whatever, and they name the plane the stacked deck in the media. Like everyone just goes on and just agrees.
Okay,
with this.
That's a little far.
Right. Like it just seeps into everything in this universe because of the people getting called aces. And a
related segue to this, The Rock's major character plot point in the movie is he makes dead jokes.
Excellent.
Ooh. Just what I've always wanted to hear.
That's all you ever tell.
Yeah. So I don't want to hear The Rock telling him. He's stepping on my bit.
Yeah, you tell The Rock he's stepping on your bit.
And Emily Blunt loves him so much, she starts telling dad jokes at the end of the movie.
I hate everything about what you just said.
Are we sure a 2-story fall won't kill me?
But positive? But do you have more you want to say about wild cards?
Not really. I mean, I enjoyed these just fine. They're decent introduction. Like if you're on the fence, like if you've heard about the books and you think you might be interested based on what you've heard, this is a good way to spend an hour.
Read these.
Well, this is a good way to spend an hour and see if these ideas and these themes are what you were expecting or what you would want to read more of. Because it's just it's a gloss over of. Go ahead.
I'd say if you read these comic books and say, "Hey, this was a good time," maybe listen to the book on tape.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what I've been doing. You guys think I actually have time to sit down and read a novel?
Oh, I know you don't.
I have an Audible account. Not sponsored, by the way. I should be.
But we are sponsored by your boy Raid Shadow Legends.
That's right. Raycon Shadow Legends.
I thought we were supported by the Great Courses Plus, but they're not around anymore.
No, that's still a thing.
The Wig Party, I heard, is sending us some money.
Well, I'm working on a deal with BetterHelp, which has totally legitimate licensed professionals.
Oh man,
maybe I should sign up to be a BetterHelp counselor.
I think you go. I think you go to jail if you drive someone to suicide, Ayrton.
No.
Do you? Are you sure? Can we check
Ayrton,
on that? Can we ask for Kata on that one?
I'm sure Ayrton qualifies as a music therapist.
Yeah.
So this has been the first episode of the Cardcast.
That's right.
If you're interested, you can stick around. We will now transition back to the Gospel of Comics and talk about comic books.
So talk to us about Transmetropolitan, Joe.
Man, I'm just feeling real suicidal. Oh, you're gonna have to start paying me in advance then.
Just in case. By the way, can I borrow some money?
No, I believe we were going to talk about
Transmetropolitan.
Well, I mean, yes, but I think we need to talk about that through the lens of Black Batman.
Oh, okay.
Which Black Batman are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about the actual Black Batman?
No, we're going
to hypothetical Black Batman that people want now.
No. We're going to talk about how ideologue extremists have entirely misunderstood that taking a white paternalist, vigilante, and criminal, and making him a black paternalist, vigilante, and criminal is not only not better, but doesn't change the context at all.
Also, a black paternalist whose parents are killed in criminal violence, but is raised by a stranger who's not his parents.
Right.
Again, that's totally not a massive shift in context.
So I want, before we get into this, I need to justify my terms as to why I argue Batman's a paternalist. I don't have a problem with it. It's just the thing that is a descriptor. There's a film. I shared a link to it in the Discord called Superman versus the Elite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And I fucking hate this movie. Because it's not just to take that to the Authority, who admittedly have their own problems and the Authority sucks.
It's because you hate fun?
No. It's because in the entire thesis of the film is that the Elite are these hip young heroes who have decided they're going to fix the world's problems by just killing villains. They don't buy into the DC no-kill policy.
Well, hold up. I don't think that's the thesis of the book.
No, that is the thesis of the book, because you have to get to the end. All right? Because Superman decides to teach these young punks a lesson. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
By going all out. He says, you know what? You're right. I'm tired of getting punched in the face. I'm just going to murder people. And gives the appearance of mass destruction, mass property damage, mass murder, right? So that these kids, especially their young punk leader, who's basically Sid Vicious, right, will have a teary, you can't kill people, you're Superman. At which point Superman reveals, but wait, I didn't do any of that, because I have Kryptonian robots, and I can put people in danger and undo the effects in the instant, because you just didn't see my robots capture everyone, make sure nobody got hit by shrapnel, and otherwise I can threaten you with extreme violence and be the good guy, but nobody got hurt, so it's okay, right? And this is why I do not agree with the thesis of Superman, and why, even though he's a piece of shit, Lex Luthor is 1/3 right, because Superman is the baby bumper that prevents us from learning mistakes.
You see,
right? Becoming better.
I disagree with your entire take.
You can disagree, but I'm getting onto this is a Batman. Okay, the difference is that while Superman is a nanny state, okay, Batman is a paternalist. He is descended from Gotham royalty, born to wealth, and perceives that it is his personal responsibility as a literal city father to protect and encourage the growth of Gotham, to curate it, right? His
inability himself.
Right, his inability to do so is respective not only of the scope of the intention, because you can't kill crime, Bruce, but the fact that he also still believes that you have to let people make their own mistakes. They have to have the fundamental freedom to fuck up. Right? The presumption of the people who want a black Batman that is just basically a black Bruce Wayne is that by making him a different ethnicity, you change this format. Right? Except you don't. Because Bruce Wayne is not someone who experienced, the tribulations of slavery and feeling oppressed, because he literally comes from privilege, went to the best schools, had the best potential to do the best things, and his perspectives are going to be the same class-based identity, which means he believes he's a city father to Gotham and he must protect it from evil. Well, that's all there is.
I mean, these garbage people don't actually believe any of that stuff that they're claiming to believe.
So I think I've got the cover for this Black Batman issue up on screen. Is this correct? Is this the right guy?
I don't believe so.
That's actually
the guy that touched you.
No, that's actually the future state Black Batman. It's stupid but less stupid Black Batman.
Oh, the Stan Lee Black Batman is not the one we're talking about then.
No.
Oh, well, then I have no frame of reference.
That's a separate stupid Black Batman.
I have no frame of reference, and that's the only Black Batman I know.
We're talking about an article published by Devin Foster. Quote, Batman's story would be more powerful and very different.
I was making a joke.
I know, but it falls flat on me.
But also that whole line of DC books inspired by Stan Lee. I wonder if cocaine was a factor.
I think cocaine was definitely a factor. I think Hunter S. Thompson Ghost wrote those books.
Do you know how hard it's been to not grab my guitar and start playing Eric Clapton's Cocaine? Do you have any idea the restraint that I've taken to not do that?
We appreciate that, Ayrton. We appreciate that. How about you play that at the end of the show to play the people out?
I might.
But I agree with all of your substantive points on Batman. Making Bruce Wayne black for no reason changes literally everything about his character. Much like making Doctor Who female changed everything about Doctor Who as a character.
Well, no, that's the thing. I don't actually believe that making Bruce Wayne black changes Bruce Wayne or Batman. I think it
kind of does.
Well, I mean, it does for the reasons you said, but also they won't ever address those in the story if they ever did that. So it would make Batman even phonier and make less people read it until nobody reads Batman anymore.
Until they dig up a new Frank Miller to re-release the Workhorse, because that's the thing. That's the important language, actually. Oddly enough, that I think is lost in this continuing conversation about we need to change up comics, is Batman was dying as a comic before Frank Miller. Okay? Frank Miller was a Hail Mary to save Batman as a property.
Mm-hmm. Look, the 1970s, the grim, dark, vigilante stuff of the 70s, that is what re-energized Batman.
Except that's not the 70s.
I mean, 70s, 80s.
But even so, what makes an interesting Batman? What makes a different Batman? A poor Batman. You
mean Nightwing?
Batman. No, I mean an actual poor Batman. What if?
Oh yeah, that's right.
He means D-Man from Marvel.
What I mean is, what if Bruce Wayne's parents got shot and Bruce Wayne lost everything, as a kid?
Yeah, what if Alfred was actually Lex Luthor and he just saw his opportunity to seize control of Wayne Enterprises?
I mean, that would actually be interesting.
Right.
But
so you've got D-Man coming up against him with Jarvis.
They don't actually want a black Batman to tell a black story. They want a black Batman so they can say, see, our product is black, ergo it's more diverse, ergo you're going to want to buy it.
This is not DC saying this.
No, they want to promote the message.
Yeah, this is some ideologue promoting this.
Who wants to work for DC.
Yeah, but there's another thing. There's another facet to this, which is called embarrassment. Because Jordan B. embarrassed them.
Because he's an actual fan?
Yeah, because he's an actual fan and he doesn't want to be a black Kal-El. And he said, no, I don't want to be a black Kal-El.
Because he's actually worth money. Yeah, because he's worth a lot of money, the studio says, sure, do whatever you want, Jordan.
Yeah. Oddly enough, we're getting the same thing with The Rock, because The Rock says, I want to be Black Adam, but I want to be Black Adam versus Cavill Superman. please let us have a good Superman movie. Don't fuck it up.
And they said, well, look, we promised J.J. Abrams a Superman movie where it's going to be a black guy, and we have, Michael B. Jordan Superman movie where it's a black guy. We can't do it.
Right. Because Warner Brothers is killing its own cash cow.
But the problem is, for everything you said about Black Batman, those things all are problems, but then you, of course, have Black Batman and being raised by a white stranger is, problematic. So Alfred then has to become a black butler, but not the black butler. But if you have a black butler to a black rich family, that's also problematic. So then you have to remove Alfred from being a butler, which is what they did in the weird "Let's make Bruce Wayne Asian" young adult.
No, that's the thing. That's the thing. It actually becomes it's a stupid cascade because they said, okay, Alfred's not the butler, right? But they made Alfred every other vaguely racist Asian trope they could, because they don't understand characterization extends beyond racial identity. They don't
believe in race. They believe in post-racial racial identity.
Sure, we can just start throwing words at things, and things can have meanings. Okay.
Well, they believe that race as a biological component is false, but race is a social construct. So your blackness isn't based on your actually being ethnically black. Your blackness is based on having a black experience.
So I'm black now?
You can't have a rich... Which means you can't have a rich black man being Batman, because then he's not having an authentic black experience. He's still white.
Well, see, the problem is, and this is their choice of medium. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm getting lost. I was terrible at algebra.
If you make the argument that race is a social construct, you are in fact correct.
Croyd Princeton never learned algebra.
There is a social element to it, right? Because at base, a black human and a white human are both human, right? But in superheroics, which itself speaks to the universality of humanity, right? It's not a black superhero, and if it's a black superhero, you're doing it wrong.
Well, also, for these terrible people, a black human and a white human aren't the same, because white humans lack empathy at a biological level. They teach.
Of course, because I have the original sin of being the whitey.
Yeah.
How dare you?
I know. I've done nothing but make this world a more terrible place. I have been told by other people that, despite my fact I have a disability and don't believe that I need a magical wheelchair, that I live in a hellscape. So, what the fuck do I know?
Exactly. But the problem with Black Batman, let's see, we've talked about how his being rich and being a city patriarch as a black person in a white society negates his having an authentic black experience. We mentioned how having Alfred as a black butler would be problematic. We then have to look at the fact that most Batman's villains that he punches aren't black people. They're not even coded black people. Most of them are white people.
If your name is Max Landis and your daddy made
Twilight Zone, we're going to have a rich, powerful city patriarch who's black fighting white people who are part of a mental illness oppressed underclass.
Wait a minute, I want to bring this up. If your name is Max Landis and your daddy made if your name is Max Landis and your daddy made Twilight Zone, then you can have a black Joker, because the Joker is a performance artist, right? And you can also change Jimmy Olsen to a black guy because nobody cares about Jimmy Olsen. So that you can change the ethnicity. You can make Batman's villains into people of color. It just means you haven't addressed the black-on-black violence element.
Okay, my Discord went out, but it sounds like you guys were hearing me while I wasn't hearing you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So you have that as a problem. Let's see, what else is problematic in this whole concept? The rich black boy whose family owns the largest company
Well,
in the city.
can I point out a big problem with this?
Yeah.
What black people are going to the opera?
Well, I mean, you just make it a rap concert.
No,
obviously.
no. If they have any kind of knowledge base, and we know they don't, but if they did, the obvious intimation is that not only is Bruce Wayne Black Batman a different Batman, but we have to deconstruct the Waynes, right? So the Waynes are no longer innocent people in a bad situation who got shot due to random street violence. They are now Uncle Toms who bought into white culture by being anti-non-black, because they should have gone to the rap concert and didn't, and that's why they had to die.
Also, the Waynes made their money first by oppressing the Indians because they were fur traders.
Right.
So that's another element, that the Waynes are part of a colonialist narrative. So that makes it even more problematic when you cast a black person as a scion of a family who is perpetuating a narrative of colonialist oppression.
Yeah. This conversation is making my ass hurt.
I'm just buying stock in cotton companies.
So you're buying stock in companies that are profiting from the oppression of Muslims in China?
Yes.
Very well.
You know, because I'm an asshole. Because I'm an asshole and your accent, I thought you meant you were buying stocking companies. Like you were buying companies that made stockings.
I'm going to do that too now.
For a moment.
I did not know. Church, are you responsible for my socks? Because they work. They're good. I like them. I need.
Sweet. I'll make sure that they lower the quality on those. We're obviously doing too good.
Have we successfully, demolished the entire idea of, hey, let's make Bruce Wayne black for no reason?
I mean, it's almost self-demolishing at that point.
Yeah, just bringing it up kind of does the trick.
Now, likewise, if you make Clark Kent black, you have several problematic problems. Like, first, you're erasing a Jewish narrative and replacing it with a black person.
Oh, they have. No one has addressed that ongoing problem in the better part of many years.
Also, Clark Kent is an immigrant narrative, so you're again erasing an immigrant story and replacing it with a black person's story.
No,
so you're saying he is an illegal alien?
No, he's legal.
Yeah, didn't they give Superman
he's legal
honorary
from the John Byrne era?
Well, yeah, they gave him honorary citizenship at one point.
Yeah, but in the John Byrne era, John Byrne's
these damn Kryptonians
made him be born on Earth.
These damn Kryptonians stealing our gerbs.
But there's that. But the people who write at DC Comics don't believe in Superman, and they only believe that Batman is a well that will supply them with infinite money.
We're not talking about the larger problem here, how journalists have taken a cue from Clark Kent and just stopped doing any real work because they think they can just rely on their superpowers that they don't have, unlike Clark Kent.
Well, you see, they believe that if they write terrible clickbait articles, they'll get hired by the comic book companies, and they'll write comic books, and then they'll get hired by Netflix, and they'll make money. And then they'll get into Hollywood and make lots of money writing scripts for movies and TV shows, even though TV and movie scriptwriters don't make a whole lot more than comic book writers.
They don't actually want to be writers. They want to be showrunners. Showrunners make a lot of money and get a lot of credit for other people's hard work.
There's a range for how much the showrunner actually does on a show. It depends on the show a great deal, and the production company, obviously.
Right, but then we have to. Oh my God! It goes back to Jews. We have to assume that this is that they're all angling to be J.J. Abrams because they want to get in, start it, get all the credit for its creative genius, and then get out before they have to be responsible for actually running the show.
And get paid hundreds of millions of dollars to ruin franchises.
Indeed.
Versus being paid slightly above minimum wage to ruin franchises.
Yeah.
So do we want to talk about the Mags Visaggio GoFundMe?
Sure.
I mean,
I have no
I have
idea
no
what's
opinion.
going on there.
Well, I mean, Max Visaggio, who sells comic books that sell hundreds of copies. I put the link in the Discord. Is she's asking her fans for $1,000 a month. Now, there are lots of people like me who, if we weren't blockbotted by Max Visaggio, I would seriously consider giving her a donation to help her out. Because I've actually had relatively civil conversations with Mags when he removed me from the blockbot for some reason.
What's the
I mean, I
$1,000
could
a month
probably
for?
ask Gail Simone to ask. That's the shortfall in their family budget. She and her girlfriend.
Pass.
Nah, I'm good.
And
I'm actually checking to see if I have been talking to this person or not, because I don't remember.
You're probably blocked because you have
probably
wrong
blocked.
friends.
I don't know. Sometimes weird people show up in my thing.
And I am also one of the few people out there who watched the entire run of the TV series Vagrant Queen.
We talked about that. Didn't
We
at
talked
one point?
about it after the show finished.
Oh, okay. So, what exactly do they need an extra $1,000 for?
Well, they need X amount of money, and they have X minus $1,000 a month worth of money.
Okay. That doesn't answer my question. I know how basic math works. What's the $1,000 that they're missing that they need to spend it?
Foods, medicines.
Yeah, man, HRT is not cheap.
Well, no, that's covered by the government.
Don't make my head hurt any worse than it already is. Don't break my heart any more than it already is, Larry.
You have a heart?
But Mags can be a decent person, and then she can also have moments where she goes into a bipolar ideation. But maybe, if people like Mags treated people on the internet like people, maybe she might be able to get that $1,000 GoFundMe going easier.
Yeah, but this is a monthly GoFundMe or some shit, right?
Yeah.
So a Patreon. She's trying to get 1,000 people to give her $1 a month.
Well, no, Patreon generally requires you to do something.
Okay, OnlyFans. Whatever. People like lesbian.
Well, no, I
porn,
mean,
whatever.
OnlyFans also requires you to do something.
Yeah, people like lesbian porn.
Also, OnlyFans no longer wants to do porn.
Yeah,
Because the government's cracking down on that.
On porn?
On people giving money to adult content producers.
Oh, well, it's because, as for instance, I watched a clip from a VTuber who was given $55,550 as a donation.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain was like, what the fuck did they do for that besides show up and look cute? And the answer is nothing.
You see, the government believes a lot of those sorts of content producers may be part of complicated networks of money launderers.
Which they undoubtedly are. Whether they know it or not.
So the government
who gives a fuck?
No,
the government. So the government says to banks, you need to shut them down.
No,
and this is why. Whenever you see Patreon or things like that crack down on anime titties on the internet, it's because the government says, "Listen, you need to go after all sorts of content like this. We can't tell you to go after this content because that would be illegal. But if you don't go after content that we consider to be a problem, we'll actually regulate you."
Well, it's because the government's mad that they're not getting that sweet money. Because the government doesn't have an OnlyFans.
Tax these nuts, fat boy.
And the government realizes that people who... And yes, they are. And the government realizes that people who like anime titties may also be right-wing extremists.
I know plenty of people who aren't even remotely right wing that like anime titties.
No,
Right.
that's the presumption. The
Yeah, but they don't have money.
is that if they, yeah,
That's a good point.
no, they don't have money and they don't agree with us. Therefore, alt-right. This is the standard go.
Yeah. But you see, Ayrton, people with very advanced degrees have found a high degree of correlation between liking problematic content and being a right-wing extremist.
I mean, several
people with those advanced degrees can suck my left nut and make the right one jealous.
I mean, several decades ago, it would have been a correlation between intellectuals, dangerous politics, and the left.
But now they work for the government, so it's okay to do that. It's only okay when they do it.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I had misunderstood the dynamic.
Yeah, it's only okay when we do it. Is the dynamic?
Yeah.
Like, it's wrong when President Trump did things that were unconstitutional, and it's okay when Joe Biden does things that he said a couple weeks ago are absolutely unconstitutional. And he's like, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't now.
I mean, at least we admit that they're unconstitutional. Because I know people that straight up will tell you to your face that everything Trump ever did was totally legal, and any counter argument is blasphemy.
Right. That's correct. Those are correct people.
What's next on the show list, Mr. Church of Failure?
I mean, I sent everybody a link to put things on the show list, and nobody did. So I'm wondering why.
I put stuff up on Twitter because I was busy and I didn't have the time to put it on the list.
I make the list now because I can't keep up with the Twitter because of the shit posting. I can't tell the difference between shit posting and legitimate content.
I mean,
the problem with that is, Church, I was a cut hair away from putting your mom as one of the things on the list.
You should have done that.
Your plan might backfire. Your plan might backfire.
Well, here's the thing, though. I think I came up with a great idea this week that nobody wanted to comment on. The vaccine passports. They've been a big part of contentative discussions in the past few weeks, and I came up with a solution because carrying around a piece of paper and having it ready whenever you need to go somewhere, that's a pain in the ass, right? Like, how many
hold up. That's not what the government's talking about. Hold
on. No,
the government doesn't want to count that as a vaccine passport, even though that is exactly what that is.
Okay, well, in any event, like I don't think that people are going to be able to keep up with these sophisticated documents. So I think we all need is like a visual, a visual representation so that we can easily identify people that are vaccinated and people that are not vaccinated. And I think I came up with the perfect thing. More of it's kind of like a badge, right?
Take a drink, guys.
You can make it into a pen, or you could just have it printed directly on your clothes.
I didn't comment on this because I didn't find it particularly compelling.
You don't think so?
No, I chose to ignore that because there is an actual serious problem with vaccine passports. So, do you know what the government is advocating for? No, this is serious. Do you know what the government is advocating for vaccine passports?
No.
They want you to have an app on your phone.
Okay.
And they want you to have that app on your phone, have access to your protected health information, and not be secure.
Oh no, my body, my choice, right? Like that's my default go-to right now.
No. That's a separate but also important issue. But they want these vaccine passports, and also you give the vaccine passport companies permission to get your medical information from your doctors, and also they're again not required to use that under health information protections allowed under federal law. So basically, you're giving random internet data mining companies access to your protected medical data for research purposes that you don't know.
Can I just point out, my dad had a brilliant comeback that he told my aunt to tell people if they asked to see like her vaccination card. He was like, ask somebody to see their last colonoscopy or pap smear results.
Right.
I don't have a problem showing the vaccine card, but I've not been in a situation where I've had to. It's in my car if I need it.
I mean, I've never been vaccinated for anything, so
yeah. I mean, I've got
because of
my wallet,
because of the nature of my job, because of the work that I do, I have always advocated for the vaccination, but I have also always said that the notion of a proof of vaccination was a bad idea. Just
well, there were a lot of bad ideas. That's what we should do. We should do a Church of Failure talks about COVID in a responsible, non-shit posting way.
I don't know that that's
not
possible.
Okay, so this is a show that we're not going to be on.
Yeah, who's going to run this show?
Hey,
I'll jump on.
You want to get monetized? You want to get monetized? We need to get with the YouTube propaganda program, Church.
I mean, that would be the way to do it. Jesus Christ!
So do you want to talk about Fantasy Portland as a topic?
No.
I've played Shadowrun.
No. I'm not talking about good Fantasy Portland. I'm talking about contemporary D&D Fantasy Portland.
What?
So,
the fuck is this?
The fuck did you just say to
so
me, Larry?
I posted.
I'll goddamn fight you!
I mean, you actually live in Portland, but I'm not talking about the actual
north
Portland.
Of Portland, and I'm glad.
I'm talking about the whole Antifa, hipster Portland, the Portlandia Portland.
Portland.
Yeah. So as you know, that's a very strong aspect of the 5th edition aesthetic, and I saw on the Dungeons and Dragons Facebook group, and I just shared with you, Mr. RuneKnight, the images. And Church, do you have the images loaded up for the people in our YouTube audience?
Yeah.
So people are talking about how we need to make monster races non-evil and just be ordinary people. And I want to share the pain with you of some of these artistic pictures.
Well,
now, do I want to copy
definition of a monster though?
No, I saw them.
Do I want to copy the link, or do I just want to block Larry on Twitter?
Their supposition is fundamentally untrue. Okay.
Well, let's start off with the first picture. The first picture is titled "Tiefling Aromatherapy." So it's a tiefling who smells.
Wait, what?
The tiefling is giving mental health counseling and aromatherapy to an elf there.
Right. Never happened.
You might not be able to die from a 2-story fall, Ayrton, but I'm pretty sure you could make a noose short enough to dangle from.
I'm still waiting for the tree to grow tall enough in the backyard.
I will actually say I don't hate the idea of a lizard man being a park ranger.
No,
I think that's an interesting idea.
Here's the thing. I actually had this conversation earlier this week. All right. There was a person. They were saying I'm having a lot of trouble running my D&D game because my players are bored with combat. And I said, well, look, I know lots of things. I can help you out with combat. I'm like, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, I have been playing RPGs since I was 7. I learned from my folks who were players in First Ed. There's a lot of unwritten heuristic knowledge that has been lost or has been misplaced because it doesn't fit in a book. There's no, you learn by doing in this regard. And they're like, cool. So I gave them the rundown of things. And one of the things I pointed out was the idea that, like, even if you are an adventuring party and you're wandering around and you encounter a bunch of gobos, right? These were not creatures that were spawned to give you XP. These guys existed. They have lives. They have families. They are basically an adventuring party of counter intent, right? Because maybe they're a patrol, maybe they're a foraging party, maybe they're out looking for golden loot and just ran into you and think you're fucking bandits. Doesn't matter. The point is that they're going to use tactics and their environment to fight you, and if it looks like it's going bad for them, they will run away. Yeah. So the idea that your monsters are people is not wrong. The problem is the presumption that your monsters, your outsiders, because that's what monster means for anyone that took fucking first year French, right, are as culturally nuanced or as wealthy as your mainstream character from your mainstream society. These creatures live outside of what is deemed civilized for a reason. They've only got the tech level of what they've got available. Are they people? Yes. Why are they stealing your shit? Because they don't have shit! They want your stuff because they ain't got it.
So,
it's not.
That's typically why.
So are you saying the Kobold Barista is a nuanced character? Because I'm saying that's the opposite of nuance.
No, what I'm saying is that the Kobold Barista doesn't exist and can't exist. Because if the Kobold comes to your medieval village and says, "I want to work," it's like, cool. We're not gonna employ you in the highest levels of labor because you're a Kobold and we can't trust you. And then follow-through is like, okay, we're gonna give you labor. We're gonna give you all the shit jobs we don't want. So what you get is Kobold underclass, right? Now, if you want
that's an accurate description of baristas.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if you want to then suggest that they're the barista, it's like, okay, what is it like to be a Kobold barista? Oh, it's not a fun experience like being a human barista. You're a Kobold barista, which means every time the drink is wrong, it's your fucking fault. And every time that they don't sell a drink, it's your fault, meaning you don't get paid, meaning you're basically a slave.
Well, look.
Slavery in modern D&D, that's bad.
Look. They want representation of alternate races and lifestyles, but nothing bad happens to them. That's right.
None of the consequences of being those peoples, of being in those cultures. I kid you not, I was writing a story. I've got it put aside because I'm not sure what to do with it. Okay, in which the structure of the tale is that a group of adventurers have to be called to go fight orcs. Why? Because the orcs are raiding again. Why are the orcs raiding? Because they're fucking orcs. What was the first engagement that let the government know something was wrong? The orcs attacked an Orc Lives Matter protest. Because the Orcs Lives Matter people were confused when they said, but we're painted green, we're like you. And the orcs said, no, you're not. You don't understand what it is to live in the saddle. You don't understand what it is to worship Brimish. You've never been reared by the cave bear. You are not of me. You are the thing grind under my heel.
Now, another one of these images I want to bring up is the Drider School Crossing Guard.
I mean, you mean the exile?
Yeah.
The subhuman derelict raised for war?
Yeah.
The one who failed his queen and is rightfully hated by all other drow, that one?
Who's supervising small children crossing the street? That is such a weird artistic choice.
Well, I mean, see, here's the thing. This is why I can't hate these, even though they're fucking stupid. Because if the actual context of this is the drow saying, yes, right this way, children, to safety, and luring them into the web where he's then going to eat them, I'm perfectly down with the Drider Crossing Guard.
They have a bugbear midwife.
Horrifying.
The artist calls this a beholder optician, but it's actually not a beholder because it has too few eye stalks. It's actually the beholder's good cousin.
Wait a minute, can we mention that beholders are not only dreamed into existence by insanity, but are a hate-filled, xenophobic race of eyeball supremacists who believe that only beholders who are the exact same color, distribution, and number of eye sets as themselves are actual people.
Yes.
Everything else exists to be destroyed.
Yes.
So your beholder optometrist is selling you glasses that actively make it harder for you to see, so you walk out into traffic.
So realistically, it should be a beholder dentist.
I mean,
to properly represent their evil.
No. What it should actually be is a beholder who is a industrialist who runs a criminal empire like Lex Luthor, designed to destroy subhumans.
Well, hold up. You know that's actually in one of the D&D modules.
Yes, I do.
And last but not least, the most realistic for the D&D setting, a drow with a half-elf as its yoga instructor.
That's a gay couple.
Actually, this is the one I have the least problem with. The only real problem is that it's an elf and a drow.
Isn't that cultural appropriation,
no.
taking the Hindu art style of yoga?
I mean, it might be, but it's not. Because if you are familiar with the 2nd edition Guide to Menzo Berenzon, the drow are an exceedingly hedonistic culture, and their primary form of relaxation is Romanistic baths and massage. So it's not that he's doing the Hindu arts of yoga. It's that he's doing the drow arts of muscle training that are then used to assassinate people. And what you do not see is that in the next 5 seconds, he's going to carefully move his hands up to this person's neck, twist to the 45 degrees, and drop their corpse. Because they're drow.
And this is what it's like playing games with RuneKnight. Speaking of which, are we playing tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as I know.
So let me just back up
to since when?
Since right now when Rune said it.
Look, it's every other week. As far as I know, we didn't play last week, so it would be this week.
And Rune would know if you played the game he was running last week.
Yeah, I'd be there.
That's a good point.
I don't know. I slipped him a Mickey the last time we played.
I want to talk about the fundamental concept of races being quote unquote evil in the Dungeons and Dragons, which this was made to be a counter narrative to, and it fails that because it's stupid. See, every time I've played a Dungeons and Dragons game, the orcs aren't evil because orcs are evil, even though that's inherently part of the D&D lore. The dungeon masters laid out the orcs being evil because the orcs came into a village, they raided it, they burned the village down, they killed people, implied rape, or stated yes, they did in fact rape people. They took people into slavery. The orcs were classified as evil because here are various actions that they did that fits on the moral axis of evil within the world of Dungeons and Dragons. Y'all know it's evil, so you want to go out and stab them with sharp things because they did evil to people who are paying you to stab them with sharp things.
The misunderstanding that these kinds of people have is that they want to move away from race because they don't like that language. They want to go lineage, right? We want to go. We want to talk about culture. Well, the fact of the matter is, you didn't change anything because it is the culture of orcs and the culture of drow and the culture of insert race here that is the source of the evils.
Yeah, like literally every time I've played in the Underdark, I assume that the drow down there are evil because their goddess is a spider goddess that wants, to eat people and, be part of, depraved sexual acts.
And remember, they live in a cave full of radiation because the magical energy that makes their shit work is radiation. So they're all irradiated psychopaths.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. Going back to orc for a minute, okay? Orcs live in barren mountains, they live in lonely wastelands, they live on Tagiga, they live in tundra, they live in shitty places, they live in swamps. Why do they live there? Because the elves took the forest, the dwarves took the good mountains, the halves the hill folk, and the humans live anywhere, but you tend to like plains, right? Literally, all the other races took all the good land and all the good stuff, and they've got all the wealth. And if you're living in shit town on shit mountain and you see your rich neighbors back there, there comes a point of madness where you think about taking their shit.
And also to survive in the horrible conditions they have, violence is the preferred solution.
Right. So their gods are brutal. Their culture is brutal. It's Nietzschean. The arithmetic of survival is such that these are not nice people. If they come to you with diplomacy, it is from a position of strength and authority because they think they can take you and they want to spare wasting resources. It has nothing to do with a noble heart. It has nothing to do with a positive interpretation of society. They don't want to be good neighbors. They don't even want to be neighbors. They want to take your shit and move on.
That reminds me, I was watching a video about the hen in the Dungeons and Dragons setting Mystara, and it talks about how these halflings were oppressed by various orcish rulers, and there was one that allowed them to recover their standing and their capabilities because they were the slaves that provided the predominant amount of their agriculture, and he was an intelligent enough orc to realize, wait, we need plants for things. We need plants to feed our mounts. We need some vegetation, and we need people who work that. We can't just murder them all.
The thing is a better way to think of these races, right, is not as monsters. Because monsters are non-intelligent things. Cleanup crew that eat trash off the dungeon floor and Tarrasques and anything unintelligent that is just a dangerous animal. These are competing branches of humanity, or competing cultures to what is essentially humanity, right?
Because
if your orc got enough material, enough land, enough farm space, enough time to sit down and think about it, yes, they could actually boast orcish libraries, orcish writing, orcish philosophy. They could develop the upper level cultural nuances that you're looking for, except those cultures would essentially be the same ones you've got, right? So if you look, so when people are like, orcs are black people, no, orcs are not black people. Sorry, that they're not. But all of this, like, no, you know what orcs are? The orcs are the Khan. And if you give them enough time and space and they establish an empire, you get the Mongols. That's what the orcs are. They've always been the Mongol Empire, for good or bad.
In fact, Tolkien, who invented the orcs, implied that strongly in his writings.
The biggest problem the Uruk-hai had was a little guy by name of Sauron, who fed them a bunch of lies and promises about a glorious future that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Well, why do they worship demons? Because the gods aren't listening. Well, why are their gods shit? Because they're the gods they need, not the gods you want them to have.
And related to that, if we take all the monstrous humanoid creatures and we make them not evil, then all the evil creatures are beasts. So then is a beast evil? And then if your conflict of good versus evil is humans versus beasts, it then becomes man versus nature. So eventually the Overton window moves so that all combat in Dungeons and Dragons needs to be removed because it's all problematic. Unless it's against white males, then it's fine.
It's like, interesting side note, oddly enough. People were crowing very proudly about making characters in Barovia black. Which they're not. They're kind of off.
But Barovia is a prison, though. Why are we celebrating putting black people in prison?
Well, no, the thing was the idea that they took Ravenloft and they moved it away from its East European roots and they made them non-specifically brown.
Right, but it's also important
in their most recent release, the Van Richten's Guide, they added more dread domains. And not only do many of those dread domains utterly fail to not be stereotypical, not only do many of those dread domains fail at their basic theses, because there are some dread domains where it's like you're supposed to think that the Dark Lord is evil, but he's really not. But they got a weird problem in that the people they decided to keep evil, but they changed their visual, right? Say things about the ethnicity they're trying to evoke, right? One of the red domains I like is Katakis. Katakis is full of bards, right? But the bards are wolf wares, which is a wolf that turns into a human, not a human that turns into a wolf, because hilarity. the thing is that their leader, the guy who's responsible for this, is a megalomaniacal, self-interested narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And you just randomly made him a black man. So basically, it's a violent, drugged-up blues man who murders people.
I mean, that is a very, very intrinsic blues story, and Ayrton will back me up on that.
Can I sue for life rights?
But you're trying to also not be racist with it.
So, but again,
Hey, I was born a poor black child down in Atlanta.
You and Steve Martin.
But,
yeah,
but
exactly.
I want to repeat, because this is important, but Ravenloft is a prison, though. Why are we celebrating putting black people in prison?
Well, they've also made it not a prison. That's been true since 4th edition, and I hate it.
But why, though?
Why did they make it not a prison?
Yeah.
Because whoever wrote 4th edition's a fucking hack. No, in older lore, in older mechanics, put on my Grognard hat here for a minute, the demi-plane of dread was in the ethereal and was hidden behind a big locked door, because you're not supposed to travel through random doors in the ethereal, because they could go anywhere. The implication is you could actually leave the D&D universe via the ethereal, that there were scarier things out there than hell in the abyss. Yeah, one of those is Ravenloft. But they changed that in 4th ed when they said the abyss and hell are going to be one, and we're going to call it the primordial evil. They said, oh no, Ravenloft's just in the Shadowfell. It's just in the plane of shadow, always has been. And then they never changed it back.
Well, that's stupid.
Yeah, so you can literally walk into Ravenloft by going planar by accident. It is not protected by the mists. It is not outside anywhere. The prison has no walls.
That is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm glad everybody I've played Ravenloft with in later editions just stuck with the 2nd edition aesthetic for Ravenloft.
Imagine that. Imagine why people might have just said, you know what? None of this.
I remember my first experience at Ravenloft. We were in Lankamar. We were, raiding a temple. And then all of a sudden, the mist came in. And we went to Ravenloft, which was a very big problem for my character, because my character was a quarter were-tiger.
Yeah, that's a bad day.
I was not in a happy position. The Dread Powers were talking to me, and I was not happy with that.
I'm assuming they want to be your friends.
They did, in fact, want to be my friends, because I was a militant wizard who was part were-tiger.
Oh yeah, no, they want to be your besties.
Thankfully, my DM back in high school got another setting book that he was more interested in. So a magical teleporting portal just happened to be in Ravenloft, and we left.
Mm.
That would have been a bad time for my character.
Yeah. Never mind that we now have a domain that is clearly East India or the Hindu subcontinent, with a dreadlord who's not a bad person, and 2 undervillains competing for control of it, who are not bad people, but all of them are the ultimate evil, because that's how we do things.
I mean, shouldn't you just have, the dread domain for India being, Kasha?
Well, see, the notion is that the two family members who have been transformed into horrible monsters betrayed the Dark Lord, who is now a Death Knight, and that the actual evil is their cycle of attempted murder and retaliation, as the 3 fight for who gets to control the domain at any one given time. The problem with this is that in so doing, they really made it out that the 2 twins are the actual pieces of shit, and that the actual Dreadlord is not that bad. They just happen to have died and come back. But remember, the book outright says that the Dark Lords are supposed to be absolute evil. You're not supposed to empathize with them at all.
But it also says in the book, don't be stereotypical in our setting that's known for Discount Dracula in Discount Transylvania.
Don't be a menace and self-centered while drinking your juice in the hood.
Well, because classic Gothic literature is problematic and full of white men.
even though Dracula is a reverse colonialist narrative.
Maybe?
It's about a powerful, swarthy man who conquers British society. And it's written by an Irishman. So it's a reverse colonialist narrative.
I mean, I suppose.
But also, by making Ravenloft less cool, they also make Sigil less cool, which makes me sad. Because Sigil is one of the more interesting elements of the D&D mythos.
I mean, it can be. I just like the fact that even Ravenloft can get into Sigil and the Queen of Blades can't do shit about it.
Because she's the one who set it up. You know, it's her city of doors, and there's a door from Ravenloft.
You don't want it, but it's there.
It's like I explained to my DM when we were playing in that Dark Sun campaign. I said, listen, can I go to the place in Dark Sun that's consumed by the Dread Domain? And just say, you know what, I'm just going to go into Ravenloft Dark Sun because, I'm just safer.
Happier place. No, since we apparently have segued into let's talk about D&D. I absolutely hate brand new players. I mean, I like new players. I like new experiences coming to game. That's great. But I absolutely hate this propensity for like, okay, guys, we're gonna play a game in Ravenloft. It's like, okay, so what's it about? What's going on? It's like, so you transfer to Spooky Land. Fuck you.
No.
Okay. At best, if you really need to compare it to something, if you absolutely must, Ravenloft is D&D's answer to Castlevania, and that's amazing.
Yeah. And the last Ravenloft game I ran, we actually ran it in Pathfinder, and my D&D let me play a Russian nihilist character in Ravenloft who was aware of what Ravenloft was.
I mean, if I was playing...
So he let you play a Russian?
I mean, if I was playing Pathfinder, I'd be a nihilist, too.
And so all the players were brand new to Ravenloft, and as they were making their characters, these were all Pathfinder players, I said to them, you should make humans. Making a non-human character in Ravenloft is a terrible idea. And with this guy as your DM, making a non-human character is a really terrible idea. One of them made an Aasimar Paladin in Ravenloft. I mean, he was a terrible player, and he can't play good characters, and he's that guy of our party, but...
No, I mean, literally, you dumb fuck. You just signed on for the worst experience ever. Why would you do this?
Someone else played a half-orc Blood Rager in Ravenloft.
Don't be a Caliban in Ravenloft, not unless you know what you're doing.
And so the newbies were all dumped into Ravenloft, and they were confused. And the guy who was playing the monk said, oh, I was on my quest to explore the root cause of suffering. I said, congratulations, you have found it. Welcome to Dungannon.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the character I was playing. A character who was totally aware of the nature of his reality, and the only rational course of action for him was to try to figure a way out.
Yeah. Just because it is a thing. The last time I played Ravenloft as a player for an extended period of time, I was a mongrel man.
Mm-hmm.
My name was Soren Homovich, Soren, son of man, and he was a cleric, and he knew that his life was awful. He knew that everything was terrible. He knew that that he was born to die. So he decided that it was only right that he should give his life to make life in Ravenloft less shit, or die trying.
Yeah.
And we encountered a group of mongrel men in a monastery. Basically, a terrible piece of shit had captured the orphanage and was weaponizing the older children. And my character had the chance to leave Ravenloft and decided to stay to instead train these children with the help of Mordenkainen to be Heroes and Protectors of Ravenloft, and the ST's last statement about this was, "Oh, okay, so I know what this looks like." I'm like, "Okay, what is he?" He's like, "To me, my M-Men." Because yes, if you can turn Ravenloft into a X-Men joke, you're having a nice day.
Exactly.
Ayrton,
Exactly.
do me a favor and get us the fuck out of here before my virginity grows all the way back.
I was just wondering when that was about to happen. Good night, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Go check out my Twitter at Ayrton McCartney and vote on the poll that is on my account. And we will talk about that tomorrow before the game starts.
Oh God, hold on. Let me look before I fucking log off. I hate
Wait a
you
minute,
so
are we going
much.
to talk about your virginity, or are we going to talk about your other thing?
No, there's a poll on my Twitter account. I tagged
there
all of you
isn't?
in it.
He did.
There's no poll that I see.
Does mean I pay attention to you?
No, there is a poll on there. Scroll down a bit.
Oh, is it an old poll? Oh, the shoe sock. That's the stupidest fucking shit I've ever heard.
Look, I voted in it. That's all you're going to get from me.
Okay, what'd you vote?
I voted.
You're not going to tell me which way?
Look, it's a private vote.
You'll know.
Don't invade his fucking privacy.
Fuck.
Jesus. How fucking rude. Good night,
All right.
everybody.
Sorry,